She looked me in the eye, judged my clothes, and made it clear I wasn't welcome, not as a guest, not even as a mother. I still remember the weight of that handmade quilt in my arms, each stitch a quiet promise of love. It had taken me weeks, maybe even months to finish. Every square held a memory, a story, a prayer for my grandson Leo. He was turning 6 that day, and I was certain I'd be welcomed with smiles and open arms. After all, it was family. But the moment the front door swung open, I knew something had changed. It wasn't Adrian, my son, who greeted me. It was Celeste, his wife, always polished, always perfect, like someone plucked straight from the cover of a lifestyle magazine. Her eyes skimmed over me quickly, lingering just a moment too long on my cardigan and thrift store shoes. I could almost hear the silent judgment. "Is that really what you're wearing?" She gave a tight smile. "Oh, you're here." That was it. No welcome, no warmth. I clutched the gift tighter in my hands. "I brought something for Leo," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "A quilt I made for his birthday." Celeste stepped aside, but not before taking another glance at my clothes. Her expression didn't shift. "Adrian's still getting ready. The guests are already here." Guess I blinked. Guess I asked. I thought, it was just family. She gave a small laugh, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Oh no, didn't Adrian tell you it's more of a celebration?" And just like that, something inside me deflated. I had imagined a quiet dinner cake, candles, maybe Leo, showing me the drawing he made at school, but this wasn't that. I stepped inside and immediately felt the chill, not from the air, but from the atmosphere. Polished marble floors, curated floral arrangements, champagne flutes on silver trays. This wasn't a child's birthday party. It was a statement. And me, I didn't belong to that statement. I stood in the doorway holding a gift, made with trembling hands, wearing the nicest thing I owned. But in that moment, I felt invisible. Like a stranger in the very home my son once promised would always be mine too. I took a deep breath and stepped further into the house. It was beautiful, of course, spotless, curated, designed like one of those Architectural Digest spreads you scroll past and think, who lives like this? Now I had the answer. People like Celeste, people who measure warmth in brand names and affection in square footage. The living room was already full, not of laughter or children's toys, but of adults standing in clusters, sipping something sparkling from fluted glasses and murmuring in tones that somehow felt both hushed and performative. Their outfits were carefully selected, their smiles perfectly calibrated. Gallery owners, investment bankers, boutique interior designers, couples who likely debated over which seasonal orchid to bring as a host gift. No one looked like me. I scanned the crowd for Adrian, but saw only a blur of expensive fabrics and unfamiliar faces. Then, like a burst of sunshine cutting through a dense fog, I heard it Grandma Leo's voice. I turned just in time to see him dash toward me, his small sneakers pounding across the marble floor. My arms opened instinctively, and for a moment, just one brief, golden moment, everything was right. He wrapped himself around me, his little arms squeezing tight, his cheek warm against mine. "I missed you, Grandma," he whispered. "Oh, my sweet boy," I said, kissing his hair. "I missed you too. I made you something special." But before I could even reach into the gift bag, Celeste appeared behind him. Her perfectly manicured hand landed gently but firmly on his shoulder. "Leo?" she said in that tight, clipped voice she used when she was trying to stay polite in front of people. "Why don't you go show your cousins the new playroom? Grandma can join us later after she settles in." Leo looked up at her, confused but obedient. His smile faltered, and he let go of me. "Okay," he mumbled, and then he was gone, swallowed back into the crowd of children in pastel button-ups and shiny shoes. I stood there still holding the gift, my arms now empty and awkward. Celeste turned back to me, her voice pleasant and hollow. "We'll be sitting for dinner soon. Let me show you to your seat." The dining room was just as elaborate. A long, gleaming table stretched across the space, draped in white linen, and flanked by ghost chairs, clear modern cold. Each setting had gold flatware and personalized name cards. Someone had even folded the napkins into little birds. Celeste guided me not to the head of the table, not even near Adrian or Leo, but to the far end. I was placed between an empty chair and a loud man named Gregory, who worked in venture capital and seemed thrilled to tell me about his recent yacht purchase. 72 feet, he said proudly, swirling his wine. You wouldn't believe how hard it is to find quality teak these days. I nodded politely, though my ears were still ringing from Leo's voice, how quickly it had been dismissed. Dinner began. Servers emerged, carrying small plates that looked like art installations, foams and sauces and slivers of things I couldn't name. I tried to focus to eat, to smile at appropriate moments. But every time I looked toward the other end of the table, I saw Adrian with Celeste whispering, laughing, entertaining. He didn't even glance my way. The ache started somewhere in my chest and radiated outward. Midway through the second course, Celeste raised her glass. I just want to thank everyone for being here, she said, her tone bright. Leo is so lucky to be surrounded by such a thoughtful, successful community. There were nods, toasts, polite clinks of crystal. And of course, she continued, turning her gaze down the length of the table. We're so grateful to have family here as well. Adrian's mother, Nora, is joining us tonight. She runs the most charming little literacy nonprofit, don't you, Nora? All heads turned. The way she said little, it wasn't small in size, it was small in significance. Diminished, patted on the head. I felt the flush rise up my neck. Yes, I said softly. We provide tutoring for underserved adults trying to earn their GEDs. Someone across the table gave a gentle, vague smile. Another took a slow sip of wine. How lovely, murmured a woman in pearls, the kind of tone people use when they compliment a child's crayon drawing. Gregory beside me didn't even pause in his story about the time he dined with a former tech CEO in Monte Carlo. I stared down at my plate. I could no longer taste the food. It all turned to dust in my mouth. These people didn't know me. They didn't want to. They saw a woman past her prime, wearing department store clothes and clinging to a handmade quilt. They saw someone irrelevant, pleasant maybe, but invisible. And perhaps the hardest part was realizing that Adrian didn't correct them. I didn't need applause or praise. I wasn't looking for validation, but I had hoped quietly, foolishly, that I'd be seen. That in the middle of all that polish and perfection, I could still be part of something real. Instead, I sat there smiling faintly at strangers carving bites of food I couldn't feel, and slowly, painfully began to understand. I wasn't a guest of honor. I was just a guest, in a home that used to feel like part of mine. Dessert had just been served, something elegant and deconstructed with spun sugar and a name I couldn't pronounce. Most guests barely touched it, busy as they were comparing renovations or discussing hedge fund returns. I barely registered the plate in front of me. My thoughts kept drifting back to Leo. My little Leo tucked somewhere at the children's table, with his cousins probably eating cake with his hands and wiping frosting on his sleeves. I hoped he remembered the quilt. I hoped he still wanted to show it off. Then I heard his voice, "Grandma," and there he was again, racing across the room, his eyes sparkling chocolate frosting on his cheek, his tie askew, joy radiating from him like sunlight. He climbed into my lap without hesitation, his arms looping around my neck like he'd done since he was 3. "Will you tell me the story?" he asked, breathless. I didn't need to ask which one. The star woman, I smiled, already preparing to begin. That story, it had been ours since he was a toddler. A tale about a woman who caught stars in jars and used their light to guide lost travelers. He used to fall asleep halfway through it, curled into me like a question mark. Just as I opened my mouth to begin, I saw the shadow fall across us. Celeste. She was standing now, one hand clutching the back of her chair, the other pressed against her hip. Her voice sliced across the table. "Leo, get down from there! You're going to ruin your clothes!" The room fell still. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks hovered above plates. Even Gregory the yacht man stopped talking. Leo shrank slightly but looked up at her. But Mommy Grandma's telling the star story, I said now. Her voice sharpened like ice cracking underfoot. That suit cost more than your grandmother's car. The words struck me like a slap. I opened my mouth maybe to defend myself, maybe to calm her down, but she was already moving. She grabbed Leo by the arm, not violently, but not gently either, and pulled him off my lap. He stumbled slightly, blinking in confusion. Then Celeste turned to me. I think it's time you left. She didn't whisper it. She didn't ask quietly or pull me aside. She said it aloud, in front of everyone. I felt 20 pairs of eyes turn to me. I swallowed hard. Celeste, please. It's Leo's birthday security, she said louder, raising her voice as if we were in a hotel lobby. Can someone please escort this woman out? She's disturbing our family event. There was no security, just stunned silence and faces turned away in awkwardness. I looked at Adrian. My son. He didn't look at me. His head was bowed, his hands were on the table, white-knuckled, but he said nothing, not a word. I couldn't breathe. Somehow I stood up. I'm not sure when. The quilt bag slipped from my hand. No one moved to pick it up. I walked to the door, not quickly, not with drama, just deliberately, like a sleepwalker moving toward a cliff. At the front entryway, I turned once, just once, hoping foolishly that Adrian would call out, that he would remember who I was, that he would remember who he used to be. But when I turned, he was staring at his plate. The door clicked shut behind me like a gavel coming down. Outside, the air was cool and crisp, the sun having dipped below the trees, lining their manicured street. My hands trembled as I reached for my keys. I couldn't quite get them to work. At first, my vision blurring with tears, I refused to let fall. I slid into the driver's seat. For a moment, I just sat there, still, staring into the rearview mirror, and what I saw, not a villain, not a victim, just an old woman, dressed in her best, with frosting on her sleeve and a gift that would never be opened, someone they believed should disappear quietly, fade out, be erased. But here's the thing they never understood. Not Celeste, not even Adrian. They didn't know who I was. Not really. They saw a woman who worked with books, who wore old shoes, who still said please and thank you even when no one was listening. But behind all of that, beneath the cardigan and quiet voice and wrinkled hands, was a woman who had built something from nothing. They didn't know that I had spent 40 years raising a child alone, holding 2 jobs, and putting myself through night school so I could start a literacy program that now spanned 4 counties. They didn't know that the car Celeste mocked was paid in cash from a grant I wrote by hand at my kitchen table at 2 a.m. They didn't know that the house Adrian grew up in was cleaned with my hands heated with my fear and kept alive by my hope. They didn't know, but they would, not out of revenge, not out of bitterness, but because sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one you didn't bother to look at. And I was done being invisible. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, tracing the patterns in the plaster, like they were the threads of my own unraveling. My mind replayed every moment from that birthday dinner, every sideways glance, every silencing smile, every time I let myself believe I still had a place at that table. By morning, something in me had shifted, not in anger, but in clarity. At 5:45 a.m., I was already dressed. By 6:30, I walked through the glass doors of Northwind Solutions, my building, my legacy. The lobby was still dark, the marble floors catching only the first light of dawn. The security guard Terrence looked up from his desk in surprise. "Morning, Mrs. Nash," he said, standing quickly. "Didn't expect to see you this early." I offered a smile. "Neither did I, Terrence. Just couldn't sleep." He nodded knowingly. "Long night." You could say that. The elevator ride to the 41st floor felt different that morning. The quiet hum of it reminded me of the nights I used to ride this same lift with boxes of grant applications and a thermos of black coffee. when this company was just an idea scrawled on a napkin during my lunch break at the community college. Now it spanned 3 states and employed over 2,000 people, including Celeste. She had no idea whose company she walked into every day. She thought I was just the woman who showed up underdressed to her perfect little parties. But I was the one who built the floor she strutted on, and it was time I stopped pretending otherwise. In my office, I logged into the internal employee database. I typed in her full name, Celeste Bennett Nash. Her profile came up immediately. Marketing division, senior brand strategist, hired just over a year ago, salary well into 6 figures. The photo attached was a familiar one, the same carefully composed smile she wore at dinner. Professional, curated, cold. The file painted a glowing picture. She had been praised for her initiative, strong leadership, and efficiency under pressure. But I knew how easily charm could be mistaken for character. I dug deeper into her performance reviews, project assignments, internal evaluations, and then I found them. 3 complaints, all filed by older employees. The first from Ellen Carter, 59, a project coordinator who had worked here for over 20 years. Celeste had allegedly dismissed Ellen's input in a meeting, calling her suggestions dated and behind the times. Ellen wrote that she felt publicly humiliated and was later removed from the project. The second was from James Lee, 61, a quiet but brilliant analyst who Celeste accused of slowing down the team's momentum. He was reassigned without discussion. The third was from Lorraine Matthews, 63, an administrative manager who'd been with Northwind since year 3. Celeste had complained to HR that Lorraine struggled with modern software and lacked flexibility after Lorraine refused to reschedule an entire event with 12 hours' notice. Lorraine had been placed on probation. 3 different people, all over 55, all dismissed, all quietly pushed aside. Each complaint had been marked, reviewed, and closed. No action taken. I stared at the screen for a long time. This wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't even just about Celeste. This was about the culture I had let slip through the cracks of my own company. A place I'd once sworn would value wisdom and inclusion was now quietly allowing ageism to flourish behind polished performance reviews and buzzwords like efficiency. And somehow I hadn't seen it. My phone rang, buzzing loudly on my desk and pulling me from the weight of the file. Adrian! For a long moment I considered letting it ring, but I answered. Mom, he said, his voice tired. I just wanted to call about last night. I know things got out of hand. There was a pause, hesitation. Celeste was just under a lot of pressure. Hosting that kind of dinner with all those people, it gets overwhelming. She didn't mean to, Adrian, I said quietly. Please stop. Silence. She called security on me, I continued. She asked your son to get off my lap as if I were something dirty. She humiliated me in your home, and you didn't say a word. I know, he whispered. I froze. I didn't know what to do. I felt my heart crack open, not in rage, but in sorrow. I had raised a boy with soft eyes and a spine made of kindness. How had that been whittled down to silence? You don't have to defend her, Adrian. I'm not asking you to choose sides, but I am asking you to see things clearly. Because I am. He said nothing. The line buzzed with things unsaid. I have work to do, I told him gently. We'll talk again. But not about apologies. And I hung up. I sat in that chair for a long time after the call, staring at the skyline through the tall glass windows of my office. My name wasn't on the building, but every inch of it held my fingerprints. Every desk, every department, every small success, they were all part of the world I had built from scratch. And now, someone I trusted, someone who married into my family, was using her position to chip away at the very foundation I'd laid. No more. I buzzed my assistant. Helen had been with me for 15 years. She was sharp, loyal, and just old enough to understand the feeling of being overlooked. Yes, Mrs. Nash. Helen, I said, my voice steady. I need you to pull every internal report from the marketing division. Focus on employee transfers, resignations, and performance reviews, especially those over the age of 50. Quietly. A pause. Then, of course, Anything else? I looked down at the printed photo of Celeste in her HR file. Yes, I said. We're going to clean house. Starting today. This wasn't revenge. It was restoration. Because if I've learned anything in 68 years, it's that silence protects the wrong people. And I wasn't going to be silent anymore. The thing about corporate punishment is, when it's done right, it doesn't need noise, it doesn't need grand announcements or internal memos, no HR-wide blast, no raised voices, just a simple directive, a quiet dissent. By Tuesday morning, Celeste Bennett Nash reported to the lowest floor of Northwind Solutions Level B2, a space no one in her circle would even know existed. It housed the industrial kitchen, custodial break rooms, and laundry for on-site events. The air there always carried a hint of bleach and warm steel. It wasn't meant to impress, it was meant to function. Dishwashing duty. That's where she was reassigned under the guise of a cross-training initiative for leadership immersion. It was part of a new hands-on understanding program that only one person was enrolled in. She didn't see me enter. Of course she wouldn't. I wasn't in heels or pearls this time. I wore a borrowed maintenance uniform, my silver hair tucked beneath a ball cap. No one looked twice. I could have been anyone, just another older woman who did the jobs no one noticed until they weren't done. Exactly the kind of person Celeste believed herself too important to be. I stood behind a stack of delivery boxes near the prep sink clipboard, in hand pretending to do an inventory check. In truth, I was watching her. She fumbled with the industrial sprayer, soaking her own blouse in the process. She muttered something under her breath and tossed a tray into the sink with a clatter that made the woman next to her flinch. That woman, Amelia, was 57. She'd been with us for over a decade. Kind eyes, worn hands, the kind of strength that never announced itself but could lift more than most men. Celeste sighed dramatically and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "This is absolutely ridiculous. I have an MBA. I was managing a 7-figure portfolio 2 weeks ago." Amelia didn't even look up from the plates she was stacking. Celeste turned to her. "Don't you think this is a waste of my skills?" Now Amelia looked up. Her voice was gentle, but it didn't bend. "We all have skills, honey. Some of us just don't feel the need to shout them over a sink." I watched Celeste's mouth open, ready to retort, but before she could, another woman chimed in from a few feet away. Patrice. She was 63, ran overnight sanitation, and trained most of the newer hires in kitchen rotation. The same Patrice that Celeste had once dismissed in a project feedback report as lacking agility. She was peeling vegetables now, hands swift and sure. "There's no shame in honest work," she said, "only in thinking you're too good for it." Celeste gave a short laugh, the kind that wasn't funny. "You don't understand. I have a career. I'm not this." This Amelia repeated, not unkindly. "What is this exactly?" Celeste looked away, jaw tight. And I saw it, the pride, still intact, unshaken. Her spine straight, her posture defiant, her belief that she was above all this, still firmly rooted in her bones. She hadn't broken. Not in the way I hoped. Not in the way that allows for growth. She thought she was being punished. She thought someone had it out for her. She thought this entire reassignment was about vengeance. What she hadn't yet asked, what she didn't dare ask, was why people were watching her now, why no one came to save her, why the echo of her past decisions seemed to follow her into this cold-tiled room. Because for Celeste, consequences still looked like inconvenience, not reflection, not accountability. I didn't expect her to change overnight. I know how long it takes for a person to really see themselves clearly. Sometimes it takes a sharp fall. Sometimes something gentler. Sometimes nothing at all. Some people will climb ladders no matter how many backs they step on. Others will mop floors with dignity and leave a trail of quiet goodness behind them. I watched as Celeste ruined another blouse, spraying herself again with a nozzle she refused to ask for help operating. She snapped at a young man, Luis, who was trying to assist her. Called the job menial, said the gloves made her hands itch. She didn't notice how Luis stopped offering help after that. She didn't notice the way Patrice began to work a little farther away from her. She didn't hear the quiet sigh Amelia let out as she reached for another stack of trays. But I did. I saw it all, and I realized something important. This wasn't about demotion. It wasn't about teaching her how hard other people work. It was about offering her the chance to understand what it means to live without being seen, to work with integrity even when no one is applauding, to find your value in something other than praise or title or power. It was about seeing whether she could step down and in doing so finally rise. But she wasn't there yet. She hadn't even taken the first step. Her mouth moved, her hands scrubbed, but her heart unmoved. She believed she'd been placed there to be broken. She didn't realize she'd been given a window to look inward, and until she did, she'd stay exactly where she was, not just in the basement of the company, but in the dark cellar of her own making. Some falls teach you something, others just bruise your pride. And Celeste. She was still too proud to feel anything else. The thing about pride is, it doesn't just sit quietly in someone's chest. It leaks. It slips through tone, glances muttered words that think no one's listening. It rolls off the tongue when the ego feels safe, and the heart feels nothing. By the end of her third day in janitorial, Celeste wasn't adjusting. She was fuming, still walking with her head high, still flicking her eyes over her coworkers like they were numbers in an expense report, still believing she'd been sent here by mistake, by spite, by some vindictive force she couldn't yet name. She had no idea that I was watching, listening, just a few feet away, dressed like every woman she refused to see. That afternoon the dish pit was especially loud. The kitchen had just catered a full building-wide seminar, and the returns came in like a tidal wave, trays, stacked 6-feet-tall glasses, crusted with drink remnants, cutlery tangled in napkins. Celeste was assigned to sanitizing Station 3. Luis, bless him, was trying once again to be kind. That young man had more patience in his hands than most executives have in their entire departments. He gently corrected her earlier in the day when she nearly overloaded the rinse basin, and now in the chaos of post-lunch cleanup, he offered to show her a shortcut for sorting dish racks. Celeste rolled her eyes. "I think I can figure out how to clean a spoon," she muttered. Luis didn't flinch. "It's just faster this way. Helps during rush hour." Celeste let out a breathy laugh. Not kind, not appreciative. "You've got this down to a science, huh?" she said. "I guess when this is your forever job, you get creative." Luis's brow furrowed slightly. Celeste kept going. "I mean, honestly, this whole team, it's like a retirement home mixed with a temp agency. That woman over there, what's her name, Patrice? She probably never even finished high school." My hands clenched around the clipboard I was holding. Patrice, standing 5 feet away, didn't hear her. But I did, and Luis did. He looked down, jaw tightening. "She's been here longer than anyone. She trained me. Trains most of us, actually." Celeste shrugged. "Good for her. I just don't get why a company like this keeps so many people like, well, maintenance people, stuck in the past." She said it like a punchline, like they were a burden, like they were placeholders in a machine she thought she was meant to lead. Luis didn't answer. He just turned back to his tray stack. It didn't stop there. The next day in the break room, Celeste leaned over to another temp worker, Mira, who'd been shadowing on compost disposal. Mira had an accent, soft, lyrical, unmistakably South Asian. Celeste whispered just loud enough for the rest of us to hear, "Do we even check documents down here anymore?" I turned slowly, watching her. She wasn't joking. She genuinely believed her comment was clever, observant, socially acceptable in this hidden layer of the company where apparently humanity didn't apply. And when she returned to scrubbing trays, she muttered, "I cannot believe they stuck me with this. I should be managing product launches, not playing maid with people who don't even speak English, right?" I stood there, still, unseen, and my heart didn't rage. It broke. Because this wasn't discomfort speaking. This wasn't someone adjusting to a difficult environment. This wasn't someone learning about empathy from the inside out. This was someone entrenched in their own sense of superiority. Celeste hadn't hit rock bottom. She was excavating deeper. The final blow came when I overheard her talking about me. I was in the hallway sorting recycling bins when she spoke to Luis again. He'd asked how she was holding up. Her voice was flat bitter. "She's probably loving this," she said. Luis blinked. "Who? My mother-in-law. The pathetic woman who embarrassed us in front of everyone. This has her fingerprints all over it." Luis looked confused, then cautious. "Wait," Mrs. Nash Celeste scoffed. "Please." She shows up looking like a garage sale cries over being told to wash her hands, and suddenly I'm demoted. She's manipulating everything. She's obsessed with making me look bad. She truly believed I had nothing better to do than plot her discomfort, that I was some resentful old woman with fragile feelings and too much time on her hands. She still didn't see it. She didn't see me. Not really. Not as the founder of this company. Not as the woman who wrote her first paycheck. Not even as the person who raised the man she married. I was just a problem, an obstacle to step around. There's a kind of grief that comes when you realize someone you once hoped would change won't. And it's not loud. It's not even angry. It's quiet. A closing door. I didn't cry. I didn't report her. I didn't confront her, not yet. I just stood there behind that cart of recycled plastics, listening to the rot beneath her words. The rot that didn't come from ignorance, but entitlement. Some people fall and reach for understanding. Celeste fell and dug, still clinging to the idea that this was about her pain, still missing the truth that it was always about the pain she caused. By Friday morning, I had seen enough. 3 days of watching. 3 days of listening to the poison slip through Celeste's words like oil in water. 3 days of wondering how far someone could fall and still blame everyone else for the ground beneath them. I had hoped quietly, maybe foolishly, that humility might reach her. It hadn't. So I asked Helen to schedule a meeting. 10 o'clock sharp, I told her. Have her brought up through the main elevator. I want her to walk past every glass wall on the executive floor. Helen didn't ask questions. She'd been with me long enough to know when a storm was coming, and this one had been building for years. At exactly 10:00 a.m., Helen's voice came through the intercom. "Mrs. Nash, your guest has arrived. Send her in," I said, turning my chair toward the window, my back to the door. I listened to the heels clicking on the marble floor. Slower than usual. Hesitant. Celeste's reflection appeared in the glass. Her hair tied back hastily, her button-up wrinkled from kitchen steam. She looked smaller than usual, not because of the clothes, but because the mask she wore in boardrooms no longer fit here. "Excuse me?" she said, her tone clipped with confusion. "I was told to come to—" This floor I turned slowly. Her face. First confusion, then disbelief, then horror. "You," she whispered, "what are you doing here?" I didn't move. I walked in through my private entrance, like I do every morning. A pause. Then I gestured to the chair across from me. "Please, sit." She didn't. She stood frozen, her eyes scanning the room, looking for an escape that didn't exist. "This is some kind of joke," she said. "You're not—" "I am," I interrupted. "Founder, CEO, majority shareholder, all of the above." She finally sat as if her knees had given out beneath her. "But you said, you told everyone you ran a nonprofit." "I said I ran a business," I corrected. "You assumed the rest." She was silent for a long time, calculating, and then she smiled. The same smile I'd seen her use on investors and guests, polished, professional, dangerous. "Well, Mrs. Nash," she said, folding her hands, "I can assure you had I known that I was someone worth respecting," I asked, "would you have treated me differently?" The smile faltered. "Let's talk." I continued tapping a key on my keyboard. My monitor lit up with her personnel file. "I want to walk you through a few things. 3 formal complaints from staff over 55, emails calling your coworkers maintenance people, offhand comments about citizenship education appearance. Want me to keep going? Celeste's face reddened. Those were taken out of context. Were they? I have high standards, she said defensively. This company demands results. I looked at her. So does integrity. She stood then fast, as if trying to reclaim the power she once had in rooms like this. This is revenge. You're punishing me because of a personal issue, a family disagreement. You mean your son's birthday party, I said, standing as well, where you called me a pathetic old woman and demanded I be removed in front of 20 guests. That's not a disagreement, Celeste. That's cruelty. She was trembling now, whether from rage or fear, I couldn't tell. You can't do this. HR, I am HR, I said softly. At least today, and today I'm offering you 2 options. I walked to the side table and poured a glass of water. You can resign. Today, I'll provide a neutral reference. We'll part ways cleanly. She stared at me. Or you return to the kitchen, same station, same uniform, no title, no shortcut. And you stay there until you understand what you refused to learn the first time. Her lip curled. So, this is punishment. No, I said, gently. This is a mirror, one I'm asking you to look into. She looked at me for a long time, and I saw the flicker, maybe even the possibility of humility, but it passed, replaced by something colder. I'll go back, she said, but don't think this means you've won. I nodded. That's your choice. I'll prove this was all about your ego, she snapped. I'll show Adrian what you really are. I smiled, not out of malice, but sadness. Adrian will find out the truth, I said, the whole truth, about you, about me, about who stood up and who stayed silent. She walked to the door, pausing before she left. This isn't over, she said. No, I replied. But for your sake, I hope the next chapter begins with honesty. And then she was gone, not humbled, not transformed, just angry, still clinging to the belief that this was a battle and not the consequence of a war she had waged alone. She had chosen the kitchen not to change, but to wait, to sulk, to play the victim. I had offered her a reckoning. She had chosen resentment, and my heart grew a little heavier, because I had hoped to see a woman awaken. Instead, I watched one dig deeper into her own darkness. They came to my apartment on a Sunday evening, not unannounced, but not exactly welcomed either. Adrian had called the day before, his voice uncertain, his words carefully measured. Mom, Celeste and I, we need to talk. Can we come by? Something in his tone, maybe the way he paused after her name, told me this visit wasn't just about talking. It was about choosing. I told him to come at 8. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't offer cookies. I simply opened the door when they knocked and stepped aside to let them in. The contrast was stark. My small living room faded upholstery, thrifted bookshelf, a quiet stack of Leo's coloring books by the window versus the sprawling suburban luxury they were used to. Celeste took one look around and kept her coat on. Adrian sat carefully on the edge of the sofa, like it might break beneath him. His hands were folded, nervous. He looked tired, older than 35, like the weight of pretending had finally begun to collapse. Celeste didn't wait. I think it's important, she began, that we all acknowledge what's really going on here. I said nothing, just watched. This entire thing. She continued my reassignment, the kitchen work, the humiliation. It's not about performance or complaints. It's personal. You're using your position to punish me. I tilted my head slightly. For what exactly? For not treating you like royalty, she said. For calling you out at the birthday dinner when you made a scene? I nodded slowly. That's your version of the truth. It's the truth, she snapped. Adrian winced. Celeste. No, she cut him off. She's manipulating the narrative. She's making me look like the villain when all I did was try to protect our home, our son, from someone who refuses to respect boundaries. I looked at her then, not with anger, but with something colder, clarity. Let me tell you what this is about, Celeste. I stood, walked to the bookshelf, and pulled a folder from behind the stacked novels. I laid it on the table between us. Inside were printouts, complaints, emails, transcripts. I'd prepared them not for drama, but for truth. 3 formal complaints, I said, opening the file. Ellen Carter, James Lee, Lorraine Matthews, all over the age of 55, all dismissed until I pulled the files myself. Celeste crossed her arms. So what? They didn't perform emails, I said, flipping the pages, calling them outdated, obsolete, in the way. Insinuating their accents made them less capable. Do you remember writing those, or do you only remember the bonuses you earned on their projects? Her mouth opened, but no sound came. I kept going. Luis, Patrice, Emilia. I listened to what you said about them. Maintenance people, unskilled, less than. And I listened to how you spoke about me. Mom, Adrian said gently, trying to interrupt, but I turned to him. And this is where it matters, Adrian, because she didn't just dismiss me as her mother-in-law. She didn't just call me names. She disrespected every value I built this company on. She tore down people you grew up watching me lift up. Celeste stood now, her voice rising. This is insane. She's trying to turn you against me. Look at where we are, Adrian. Look how she lives. This apartment, these clothes. She's nothing. She's an embarrassment. Adrian flinched visibly, and I saw something shift, something crack open, something old and buried in him awaken. I had seen that look before when he was 10 and stood between 2 boys teasing a smaller classmate, when he gave away his brand new backpack to a friend who couldn't afford one, when he told me after his father left, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll protect you now." That part of him had been asleep. But not anymore. "Get out," Adrian said. His voice didn't rise. It dropped. Celeste blinked. "What?" He stood, looked her in the eye. "Get out of my mother's apartment. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious." Celeste's lip quivered. Her hands curled into fists. "Adrian, you're letting her manipulate you. She's the only person in this room who's told the truth," he said. Silence. He walked to the door, opened it. "Go." She looked between us, me in my worn sweater standing with quiet dignity, Adrian beside the doorway finally choosing not to look away. She walked out without another word. The door closed softly behind her. Adrian stood for a long moment, his shoulders slumped, the air heavy with the collapse of something he didn't yet know how to name. "I'm sorry," he said finally. I nodded. He sat back down this time, sinking into the sofa like it was the first solid thing he'd touched in weeks. "She's not who I thought she was." "No," I said, sitting beside him. "But you are." He looked at me, then truly looked, and what I saw in his face was not just regret, but return. The little boy with the paper shield, the teenager who volunteered at food drives, the man who had lost his compass and tonight, just maybe, found it again. Our bond was bruised, but it was not broken, and for the first time in years, we sat together in the quiet, mother and son, no titles, no lies, finally on the same side of the truth. It didn't happen overnight. Real rebuilding never does. After Celeste walked out of my apartment that evening, she returned to the kitchen shift the next morning, eyes blazing with resentment and silence as cold as steel. But she didn't stay long. A few weeks later, without a word, she submitted her resignation to HR. No apology, no acknowledgement, just a signature typed from her home office under a subject line that read, "Transition Notice." That was her parting gift, silence. And honestly, I had no use for noise anymore, because the real work, the healing, the rebuilding, the unlearning, was just beginning. I spent the next morning at the headquarters boardroom, not as a founder reviewing financial projections or fielding acquisition offers, but as a woman retracing the cracks in her own house. I started with the complaints, every single one. The archived ones, the dismissed ones, the ones that were too minor to escalate or too gray to clarify. I read them all, highlighted patterns, marked every red flag that had been ignored in the name of efficiency. Then I called a meeting. It wasn't formal. No catered coffee, no leather chairs. Just 30 people, mostly over 50, gathered in the common area with folding chairs and wary eyes. I stood in front of them not as a CEO, but as Nora Nash, a woman who had built something meant to protect them and had failed to notice when it began to hurt them instead. I read everything I told them, every report, every email, every silence we allowed to fester. It ends here. We rewrote policy from the ground up. No more silencing complaints. No more quiet dismissals of mismatched management styles that masked age discrimination. From that day forward, any claim filed by a staff member over 50 would go directly to my desk and stay there until it was resolved with full transparency. Then came training, real training, not those 3-slide PowerPoints buried in onboarding packets. We hired experts, ran simulations, gave every department head a crash course in empathy, communication, and active listening. And yes, that included every C-suite executive, even those who had been here longer than Celeste. Respect was no longer optional. It was required. But policy wasn't enough. I wanted repair. So I asked myself, what could we create that Celeste never understood? A future that included everyone. That's how Generations Forward was born. A scholarship fund fully financed by Northwind for the children of employees. No age limits, no GPA requirements designed to exclude. If your parent worked here on any floor in any uniform, you had a path to something bigger. Luis was the first to apply. He didn't want it for himself. He wanted it for his sister, who had dropped out of nursing school to take care of their mother. She's brilliant, he told me, eyes wide, with something I hadn't seen in him in months, hope. She just needs a door to open. We opened it. And many more after that. We promoted Patrice to team lead. Emilia now manages logistics for all kitchen floors. James Lee, whose complaint Celeste had once laughed off as grumpy nostalgia, now runs our intergenerational mentorship program. He pairs junior interns with veteran staff. They share stories. They learn from each other. One generation teaches speed and tools. The other teaches patience and context. It works better than any MBA I've ever seen. Adrian visits more often now. It's still tender between us. We don't talk about Celeste, not because it's forbidden, but because the space between us is finally filled with things more important. He brings Leo some weekends. The boy has grown. One afternoon, as we were tending the tiny balcony garden outside my apartment, Leo looked up and asked Grandma, "Can you tell me the story of the Star Woman again?" My hands trembled for just a moment, and then I told it every word, every whisper, like I always had. He listened wide-eyed, his little fingers clutched around the corner of my worn cardigan. There in the quiet breeze of a Saturday morning, we stitched something new between us. Something soft, something unbreakable. Northwind Solutions isn't perfect. No company is. But these days when I walk its halls, I see things I once feared were gone. Patrice laughing with interns in the break room. Luis reading to his sister's son while waiting for a late shift. James sipping coffee beside a tech analyst barely out of college, the two of them talking like old friends. It feels like what I always meant it to be. Not a machine, not a ladder, but a family. One built not on status or surface polish, but on stories, respect, and second chances. And that's a legacy worth fighting for. The seasons change slowly, like they always do when you're paying attention. Spring bled into summer. The air grew thick with the scent of jasmine and laughter from neighborhood porches. And life, real life, quietly stitched itself back together. One Saturday, Adrian called. "Leo's been asking about you all week," he said. "He wants to go to the park. Just us." "You in?" I didn't hesitate. We packed a simple lunch, egg salad, grapes, peanut butter sandwiches with too much jelly, and spread out a faded blanket under the big oak tree at Forest Glen Park. It wasn't fancy. There were no catered platters, no ambient string music, no curated guest list. Just grass, sunshine, and the two people I loved most in the world. Leo ran ahead, racing toward the monkey bars like they were the gates of a kingdom. Adrian and I followed slower, more deliberate. He carried the cooler. I carried a heart still mending, but fuller now. Leo hung upside down from the middle bar legs, hooked like a bat hair tousled and wild. "Grandma," he yelled, cheeks flushed, "look at me. Look how strong I am." I clapped, laughing from deep in my belly. "You're amazing, Leo." He dropped down, sprinted over, and wrapped his arms around my waist, still breathless. "You're the strongest woman in the world," he said. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Not because I didn't believe him, but because I finally did. He looked up at me with eyes wide and open and safe. He didn't know what I'd been through, not all of it. He didn't need to. He knew what mattered. I was here. I was his. And somehow, despite everything, I had never stopped being his lighthouse. Later, we sat on the picnic blanket, fingers sticky with grape juice and cookie crumbs. Leo was drawing in the dirt, with a stick, humming to himself. Then, without looking up, he asked, "Why doesn't Mom come to the park with us?" Adrian looked at me. I didn't speak. This was his moment. He placed his hand gently on Leo's shoulder. "Mom is figuring some things out," he said softly. "She loves you, but sometimes grown-ups have a hard time being kind when they're hurting inside." Leo furrowed his brow. "Did she hurt Grandma, Adrian?" Nodded just once. "Yes, but Grandma forgave a lot, and we're all trying to be better now. That's what families do." Leo thought about that for a while. Then he looked up at me and asked, "Did it make you sad?" I nodded. "For a while, yes. But not now," I smiled. "Not now." He grinned, then jumped up and ran to the sandbox where he'd started building something earlier. A few minutes later, he called me over with the enthusiasm only a 6-year-old could summon. "Come look." I walked slowly, curious. He pointed proudly at a lopsided but heartfelt sandcastle. 3 towers a moat, dug with his plastic shovel, and a pine cone stuck on top like a royal flag. "This one's yours, Grandma," he said. "You're the queen." I knelt beside the castle and touched the towers gently, like they were made of something more precious than sand. "Why a queen?" I asked, smiling. "Because you make things safe," he said, "and you don't yell, and you don't leave." It was such a simple answer, but it cracked something open in me. Not pain, not regret, just the quiet truth of who I had become. Not a victim, not an avenger, not a title or a position or a lesson for someone else's journey. Just Nora, Grandma, a woman who stayed, a woman who rebuilt, a woman who didn't disappear. As the sun began to dip below the trees, casting long gold shadows across the playground, I sat on the bench and watched Leo dig his moat deeper. Adrian sat beside me, arms folded behind his head, a man still unlearning, still unfolding, but here. And I breathed. For once, I didn't think about boardrooms or policies or closed doors or whispered insults behind my back. I didn't think about the party that had broken me, or the kitchen that had revealed the truth, or the face-to-face that shattered the illusion. I thought only of this moment, of birds chirping in the branches above, of the laughter of a boy who still believed in queens and castles and strong women who never leave, of a son beside me, not perfect, not finished, but present. There's a kind of peace that doesn't come from control. It comes from presence, from being here, from choosing to stay soft when the world tells you to harden, from letting go of the need to be right and choosing instead to be whole. I used to think I had to be strong for everyone. Now I know the truth. Strength isn't armor, it's breath, it's staying. And today, I'm here, and that's everything. Some mornings the world is quieter than usual. The noise of yesterday fades, the demands of tomorrow haven't yet arrived, and on those mornings when I sit by the window with my tea watching the light shift across the buildings, I feel it. The ripple, the soft invisible wave of something good taking root and slowly spreading. Not loud, not urgent, just steady. Like the way a pebble dropped into still water sends its echo outward, touching shores it never sees. That's how the text came in, from Luis. A single sentence on a Tuesday morning. Amelia's granddaughter got into college. Thanks to your scholarship, just like that. No fanfare, no ceremony, just news that landed with the weight of something precious. I stared at the words, read them twice, then once more. I remembered the night Luis had stood in my office asking if his sister might qualify. "She's brilliant," he'd said, "but it's been hard. She gave up everything to take care of our mom." He hadn't asked for pity. He had asked for a door, and we'd opened one. Now that choice had made its way down the river to someone else's granddaughter, someone who might now walk through a college gate with her name written boldly on the future. I replied, "Tell her I believe in her already." Later that same afternoon, another note appeared in my inbox, from Patrice. The subject line read simply, "Question inside" was a short message. "There's a supervisor position opening in logistics. I'd like to apply. Can I list you as a reference?" My smile arrived before I even finished reading. Because this wasn't just about a promotion, it was about a woman who had once stood quietly beside a sink, washing dishes next to someone who mocked her behind her back, now rising slowly, proudly on her own terms. Patrice had never needed me to hand her anything. She only needed someone to stop blocking the light. I replied within a minute, "You can always list me. And if they don't choose you, they've made a mistake. Sometimes people ask me why I still work, why after everything I still show up at Northwind headquarters 3 days a week. I could have retired, moved somewhere warmer, spent my afternoons tending tomatoes or organizing vintage photographs, but I stay because of mornings like this, because of quiet messages that say without saying it, you mattered, not because of your title, not because of the corner office, but because one small, stubborn act of kindness echoed and found its way into someone else's life. I used to believe power was something you carried alone, a weight, a shield, a badge you had to protect at all costs. But I've learned power is gentler than that. It isn't kept. It's passed, like warmth, like courage, like stories told at bedtime that make a child believe in the impossible. Leo still asks for the story of the Star Woman, and each time I tell it with a little more wonder, because I've learned that the real magic in life isn't about how brightly you shine. It's about how softly you light the path for someone else. At the next staff meeting, I brought muffins, not catered, just baked, from my own oven still warm in the paper bag. Patrice smiled when she took one. Luis winked. Emilia asked for the recipe. I didn't make a speech. I didn't need to. Their presence said more than any podium ever could. Emilia leaned over before the meeting began and whispered, "My granddaughter wants to meet you." I blinked. She says you're the reason she gets to wear her name on a student ID. I touched her hand, overcome for a moment. I'm not the reason, I whispered back. She is. I just helped hold the door. That's the part Celeste never understood. She believed legacy was about control, power, image, the top floor. But a real legacy, it's the kid who opens a college letter and says, "Grandma, we did it." It's the woman who finally writes her name on a job application, no longer afraid to ask for more. It's the man who shows up to wash dishes with pride and teaches others to do the same. It's the son who sits with his mother on a park bench and learns how to love with boundaries. It's a quilt, a story, a scholarship, a sandwich in a park. One pebble, dropped with intention. Kindness doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, but it moves mountains all the same. And as I sit here watching the sun soften against the skyline, I realize something simple, quiet, and beautiful. The story didn't end with my hurt. It didn't even end with justice. It continued with goodness. And it keeps going, because someone somewhere today felt brave enough to believe again. Some endings arrive without ceremony. No storm, no raised voices, no redemption arc or late-night apology whispered through tears. Sometimes people just walk away. It was a Thursday afternoon when the envelope landed on my desk. Thick ivory cardstock, smooth cold. Celeste's signature scrawled across the bottom in deliberate ink. Her resignation, 3 lines, no explanation, no gratitude, no remorse, just effective immediately. Thank you for the opportunity. That was it. After everything, after the kitchen shift, the confrontation, the choices given, the bridges burned, this was how she chose to end it. Not with grace, not with honesty, just distance. An elegant escape route from a world she never truly entered with her heart. I held the paper in my hand for a long moment, not reading, just feeling its weight. It wasn't heavy, but the silence behind it was. I had expected something, I suppose. Not a grand confession, not a full-circle transformation, but maybe a crack, a flicker of humility, a sentence that said, "I see now." Instead, it was polished, precise, soulless, like a glass sculpture, beautiful, breakable, and entirely hollow. She hadn't learned, not truly, not yet, and maybe not ever. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. There is a kind of exhaustion that comes from hoping someone will grow, and a deeper one when you realize they won't. Some people are running from others, but some are running from themselves. I thought back to the early days when Adrian first introduced her. The dazzling smile, the curated charm, the way she spoke like every word had passed through a branding consultant before landing in your ear. I remembered how she looked at me across the dinner table like I was quaint, like I was a postcard from a town no one visited anymore. I remember the moment I saw through it, but also the moment I still hoped, because I wanted her to be better, not just for Adrian, not just for Leo, but for herself. Because I know the cost of a life lived in performance. I know what it means to hide your wounds behind achievements, your insecurities behind cruelty, your fear behind control. And I know what it takes to stop hiding, to face yourself, to change. Celeste didn't want that. She wanted out, so she left. No goodbye to her team, no email to her staff, no handshake to the women who had once washed dishes beside her, no apology to Leo, no recognition of the woman who had once stood at her door with a handmade quilt and a heart full of hope. Just absence. Adrian came by that evening. He didn't mention the resignation. He didn't need to. I poured him coffee. He brought cookies Leo had baked, slightly burnt around the edges, decorated with far too many sprinkles. We sat in silence for a while. Then he said quietly, "She's gone. Moved out this morning." I nodded. "I know." "She didn't say much. She never did," I replied. He looked down at the table, then back at me. "I thought she would change. So did I. There was no blame between us, just grief for what might have been. Sometimes the people we love choose smaller lives than we imagined for them. Sometimes the people we tried to lift let go of the rope. And sometimes all we can do is keep holding space, even if they never return. I didn't hate Celeste. That would have been easier. But hate is just another chain, and I had broken enough of those. What I felt was deeper, sadder, a sorrow that wasn't personal anymore, because in every company, in every family, in every circle I've met people like her, people who think kindness is weakness, who build palaces around their pain, who mistake silence for consent and distance for dignity. And I've learned not everyone wants to be found. Some people flee their own humanity forever. But I stay rooted, not because I'm better, but because I've seen what blooms when we stop running. Leo's laughter, Amelia's granddaughter holding her college ID, Luis walking taller, Patrice finally asking for more. These are the echoes that matter, not the resignation letter, not the departure, but the ones who stayed, the ones who grew, the ones who took their bruises and built bridges instead of walls. Celeste walked away, and perhaps one day that choice will lead her to herself. But today, I release her, not with resentment, but with a quiet prayer, that somewhere down the road, when the mirrors stop lying and the masks fall quiet, she'll remember. She'll remember the older women who didn't flinch, the child who only wanted a story, the woman at the head of the table who never raised her voice, but never backed down, and maybe she'll start again. Not for us, not for appearances, but for the girl she once was, the girl who still deserves a second chance. Some people think power lives in boardrooms. in designer suits, executive decisions or names etched on glass doors. I used to believe that too. But over the years, through triumph, through heartbreak, through silence and storms, I've come to understand something quieter and truer. Power isn't in controlling others, it's in remembering yourself. It's in lifting someone who was overlooked, in defending a voice that shakes, in walking back into a room where you were once humiliated and refusing to bow. It's not in shouting, it's in choosing not to shrink. Celeste never understood that. To her, power was about image status, impression dominance. To me, it's about legacy, integrity, grace under fire, and the courage to keep standing, even when your hands tremble. I didn't build Northwind Solutions just to house profits. I built it to prove something, that a woman who was told to stay small could build something lasting, that an aging voice could still echo change. My legacy is not just a company, it's a standard for how we treat each other, for who gets seen, and who refuses to be erased. Today the office is quieter than usual. The city hums beneath my window. I hear children playing across the street, one of them laughing so hard I can't help but smile. And then I think of Leo, the way he ran into my arms that day, the way he said I was the strongest woman in the world, the way he offered me a sandcastle and called me queen. That's the power I hold now, not titles, not revenge, but presence, knowing I showed up when it mattered, knowing I never let bitterness replace love, knowing I've carved a path wide enough for others to walk through, should they choose it. I whisper to myself, just as the sun dips low, Leo will grow up knowing what dignity looks like. And that is everything. There's something profoundly broken in the way society treats aging women. We applaud youth ambition and beauty, but grow silent around wisdom, quiet strength, and invisible labor. Nora's story reminded me that dignity is often worn, not declared. It's in the quiet way someone shows up again and again, despite being overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed. What struck me most wasn't just Celestine's cruelty, but how easily it was accepted. How Adrian said she's under a lot of pressure. How the party guests smiled politely at Nora while ignoring the violence of erasure happening right beside them. We've created a culture where surface matters more than soul, where mothers become burdens and legacy is confused with status. But Nora's journey lit a candle in the dark. True power isn't loud, it's enduring. It's the decision to rise without revenge, to protect without punishing, to remember who you are even when the world tries to forget. And maybe that's what the next generation needs most. Not more perfection, but more presence. Not more ambition, but more elders who are unafraid to love deeply, lead quietly, and stand tall in their own worth. I want to live in a world where dignity isn't something you fight to keep, but something others rise to honor. So let me ask you, have you ever been dismissed simply because of your age, your role, or your silence? Have you ever watched someone walk away from their own humanity? Or better, have you ever seen quiet strength change the course of everything? Let's talk about it. Share your thoughts in the comments. Someone out there needs your story, and someone else may realize they still have time to rewrite theirs.